Welcome to Expand Your Empire, the podcast where women stop deferring wealth and start building financial power. I'm Amanda Taylor, investor, strategist, and disruptor of outdated money rules. It's time to own your worth, grow your assets, and build a legacy that lasts. I like your earrings.
Thank you. They're from a Huichol Women's Cooperative, Indigenous Women's Cooperative in Mexico. I like to always give them credit. They are great earrings.
They are beautiful earrings. All right, well, here's something I see all the time with the women I work with, high performers, high achieving women, myself. On paper, everything looks fine. It looks like it's working. We talk about that all the time here in the business, but underneath, your body is paying for it. You're exhausted, you're stressed, maybe dealing with things that you can't fully explain. And no matter how much that you push, because we keep doing that, doesn't ever fix it. So the question becomes, what if it's not a strategy problem? What if it's something deeper? Well, today's guest, Dr. Traci, has spent 20 years helping people with exactly that. Through her mind, body, brain approach, she works with high performers who are stuck in these cycles of overwhelm with what she calls invisible illness. And I can't wait to dig into this. And she helps people shift into sustainable energy, clarity, and performance. She is the founder of Genius Health, creator of the Time Bender Method, and Healthy Hedonism. And I can't wait to dig into that either. Her work blends science, nervous system regulation, and gut health in a way most people never looked at before, and probably haven't ever talked about on a business and wealth building podcast, but that's exactly why I do what I do. So as we always talk about on here, if you ever feel like you're doing everything right, but something still feels off, this conversation is going to connect a lot of the dots. So thank you for joining me, Dr. Traci. I'm excited you're here. We've been trying to do this for a long time.
Yeah, we have. I'm looking forward to this conversation. This is what I'm passionate about. I love it.
Yeah, so I've got to see you kind of speak a little bit in front of groups of people. We've run into each other. It's so funny. We both lived in Colorado at one point, but I don't think we've ever seen each other in Colorado. It's always been somewhere else. So, but I've seen you talk before, and the first time I ever saw you talk, I'm like, I want to know her, because as someone, I was a previous personal trainer. I was very into health and nutrition. I mean, that's one piece of what you do, but I do think it's very important, even in the wealth building space. Like, why are you trying to build wealth if you're just going to be saving up for nursing home to pay,
And in nursing care, having your diapers changed and your meds administered, and, while your brain is deteriorating and you can barely walk and you're wearing an adult diaper and your sexy parts don't work and, you feel like crap. And yeah, just
that doesn't seem like wealth to me.
no.
Yeah. And I've heard you talk, and I want to get into all your methods and why you do what you do. And that's first, because you came to this through your own struggles, as most entrepreneurs do.
Yes.
So tell us about that and how you got here.
Yeah. So I grew up in a family where my dad was a psychiatrist, and we were always told that if you had a mental health issue, it was a genetic chemical imbalance. And if you had any kind of chronic disease or chronic illness, it was also a genetic thing, or getting old. And even obesity, weight issues, everything was like weighted on genetics back then. And it still is overweighted. I think I may have just done a little pun there. So my dad, he always wanted us to help out in his office. He was a psychiatrist. And so I would have to help out in his office. And I was kind of like an emotional support kid. And so that's when I would hear all this stuff. I would look at these people that had these mental health issues, and I'd be like, oh, I felt really bad for those people over there, with those bad genes. And meanwhile, I'm growing up in a house where I'm eating, Pop-Tarts for breakfast, and, just eating, my 4 food groups were Pop-Tarts and frozen pizzas. I think frozen pastries and candy, like Reese's peanut butter cups and Heath bars. Those were my favorites. And then Dr. Pepper and sodas and things like that. And then
Sounds like me.
and we sometimes ate real food, sometimes on a special occasion.
Yeah.
And if we had vegetables, they came out of a can and went into the microwave, and, like, not too original there, huh?
Yeah.
So I grew up with that. And then when I was 14, I started going to Mexico and became fluent in Spanish, and started seeing like food differently and culture differently and realizing there's a whole world out there. And so I got really interested in cultural anthropology, ended up with a doctorate in medical anthropology. Now I start seeing all these indigenous people that had previously not had all these mental health issues and chronic disease, and then they start drinking Coca-Cola, eating processed foods, being exposed to toxic chemicals, getting caught up in consumerist culture, and now, boom, they have all these chronic diseases and mental health issues that they didn't have before, according to anthropologists who had been working in their communities for decades, that in the 60s, 70s, maybe even early 80s, they didn't have this, and then here it comes. And so I was like, wait a minute, if this is all genetics and getting old, then this doesn't make sense. And then I just started realizing, we're not living how we evolved to live. We're not meeting our most basic human needs. And we've normalized a toxic culture that tries to override nature instead of working with the intelligence of nature. And I like to say that nature's genius and we are nature. So that means we have an inner genius that can heal and experience vitality and joy. And I used to think, I grew up when I ate all that processed food, we always had Pepsid, like in my pocket, like ibuprofen, Mylanta, Pepto-Bismol for all the acid reflux and the GI disturbances. And I thought it was normal to eat a meal and then feel like I needed a nap. And then just chug a bunch of caffeine. Like I thought that was normal. And I remember thinking how cool it was. I thought it was normal for eating to cause pain, like bloating and indigestion and all this stuff. And
Mhm.
I just thought that was normal. And I thought, oh, good thing we have all these medications to make it feel better. And then many years later, I would realize that is not normal. We're like, if we eat a meal and we're not energized afterwards and we have any kind of pain or discomfort or we feel like we need a nap or whatever, something was wrong with the quality or balance of that food. So I ended up gaining weight, ended up gaining 50 pounds, freshman year of college was a freshman 50. Well, it really started senior year of high school.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I had a weight issue. I thought it was genetic. And then I moved to Spain and I accidentally, over the course of 3 years, I just gradually lost the 50 pounds. I didn't even realize I'd lost 50 pounds because I wasn't weighing myself. I was just living a good life. And through all of those things, I just started to realize that what we're thinking of as these individual defects is a cultural and environmental issue. Oh, and then,
Yeah.
I had panic attacks when I was 19. And I thought, oh, those are my bad genes kicking in. And so that's where the mental health piece came in. So I really don't see any separation between mental health and physical illness or physical health. Like we talk about them like they're separate, but they're not, it's not even close to being reality.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that because now I'm remembering, yeah, I grew up, you got to see me do stand up on Friday, stand up comedy. I grew up Gen X and seriously, I was latchkey kid, so we fed ourselves and whatever was it was a probably a slice orange soda and a fudge sickle for breakfast, like a fat-free, fudge sickle for
Fat free, of
breakfast.
course.
Fat-free, of course. And then
That's
yeah,
how
the
I gained the
dinner.
most weight was on a fat free diet.
Absolutely. All the sugar. And then, I had a Weight Watchers TV dinner for dinner. Like that was my entire like child. That's what we ate. And you're right. If it was a special occasion, my mom would cook dinner and you explained it perfectly. It was green beans out of a can. That was
Yeah,
the extent of it. And even the chicken sometimes came out of a box. It
right,
was like, we
right.
just got so used to that. And you're right feeling that. And I remember in my early 20s, I had a friend who cooked, and I was so enamored with this person who like made food from scratch. And I was like, teach me this. And I fell in love with it. And that's
Right.
when I started eating real food. But I was like, how did I go so long?
I had just really never thought of where my food came from until I
Yeah.
lived in Spain. And I always thought it was genetics that was the reason I was overweight. And I thought that you had to diet to lose weight, except for no one in my family had ever successfully lost weight. But you know what happened? I lose all this weight. I go back to Texas where I grew up and I want to share with everybody. I want everyone to know, oh my God, I figured it out. We just have to eat real food. And it can be more complex than that. But in the moment, that felt very true and relevant. And no one wanted to listen to me. In fact, I remember my aunt saying, why don't you just eat real food like normal food like the rest of us? And I remember thinking, like, this isn't normal. Like, this is
Yeah.
not normal. Like, this food is not normal. We've normalized it, but it's not normal. And
Yeah.
there's so many things like that. It's not just the food. There's so many habits that go against how we evolved to live. I think now we're learning about circadian rhythms and blue light in our brains all day, and especially at night. We're learning about, if we don't put our feet on the earth, we don't make contact with the earth with our feet, the soles of our feet, there's an electron transfer that lowers inflammation and calms the nervous system that we're not experiencing. And I mean, it just goes on and on and on, like the quality of the water we're drinking, I really do understand why as humans we want food security. We wanted to like standardize where we get food. We want to have connection and communication through, and I love the miracle. I love that you can be in San Diego and I can be in Boulder, Colorado, and we can be having a conversation. I can see you, like I
Yeah.
see your cool earrings you're wearing. Like I
Same.
love this. But but I'm not against technology. I actually love AI. You can throw tomatoes at me if you want over that. But to me, it's a tool. Any tool, you have to think about how you're using. It can be like a knife. You can cut up vegetables. You can stab someone. You can
Right?
do that with any technology. So as we're evolving technology, AI needs to like stop destroying the environment, right? We need to innovate ways to sustain this energy
Thank you.
demand that using renewable resources, right? So to me, everything, if you work with and not against the intelligence of nature, which is the how everything, the whole works together, which is why I use indigenous knowledge in my practice, because there are so many ways of thinking that there's so many differences across indigenous cultures. Looking out for seeing a connection from past to present to future and having a longitudinal sense of like what came before us and then what we're creating for future, not only our future selves in this life, but future generations, right?
Yeah.
Like the long-term impacts of small choices and how they cumulatively within our lives, but also across societies and cultures, and how we're all co-creating culture together. Culture isn't something that's already preset. It's something we're continually creating with our micro habits, our daily thoughts, actions, and emotions, and everything is creating culture. So the good news is we can renovate our culture and go from a culture of self-destruction, a culture of destroying the environment, a culture of self-sabotage and sabotaging our environment, and to a culture of nurture, a culture of connection where we're connected to ourselves, each other, and nature, the planet, other beings on this planet, right? And I think just expanding and when we're dysregulated, you know this, that when we're dysregulated or we're looking through a pinhole, the way the brain works when we feel overstressed, either from chemicals in our body, from
Yeah.
some kind of infections we may not know we have, different, we call them pathogens, or the imbalance of microbes in our microbiome through mental and emotional stressors, traumas, things like that, chemical exposures, all kinds of exposures, environmental exposures. These are all the root causes of all illness, is those things I just said, right? Your cells experience something called cell danger response. So your cells are constantly monitoring for signals of safety and signals of threat. And so when your body's feeling these constant signals of threat that we call just being stressed out or being an entrepreneur or whatever,
Yeah.
cutting corners on our health because we're trying to squeeze a little bit more productivity out of ourselves, which will lead to the time bending at some point and healthy hedonism, then we impair our cells' ability to work at a high functioning level. So that means our brains don't work as well. We have more inflammation. We feel older. We don't have the mental clarity. We don't have the good moods. We don't have the optimism. Where it's just like you're just under this constant. You feel like you're either chasing or being chased. And I can relate to that as an entrepreneur myself, right? I'm having to constantly use my own tools. If I don't use my own tools, I pay the price, just like everybody else, right? I don't
Yeah.
I'm superior or perfect. I mean, it's just like we all need to be intentional, because if we're not intentional, we're going to live a life by default instead of a life that the life we actually really want,
By design. Yeah.
a life by design.
And that was one of
So,
my questions I was going to ask you, is that people just assume that stress is part of life. Yes, especially business owners, entrepreneurs, because we're in that mode so much, we just accept it.
right.
And that's the thing. And I'll point to what you said also. I'm glad you brought it up. You were talking about these root causes. And I think they're so interlinked. And I find that people will hear a podcast like this one or one I did a couple weeks ago with a hypnotherapist. They're like, that's it. That's my problem. I'm going to go that direction and focus on that one thing. Or it's gut health. So I'm going to go change everything on a dime and go that direction. And then they'll hear something else. And I'm going to go change everything and go that direction. And which is why I love your entire system that you top down, bottom up
Right.
system
Like
because
creating your own
you
ecosystem.
you
Yeah.
do everything together because I don't think you can silo these things
Right.
individually.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. So, when someone's, we're going to work with their mindset and beliefs and, what we call self-sabotage, which is really just protector parts that mean well, that are trying to help protect you from that developed as a small child or in developmental years or through traumas and life events, and they mean well. And we don't, and one of the things about nature is when you push against something, when you create resistance, you make it bigger and stronger. And so you don't fix habits that don't serve you by shaming and by pushing against them and being like, I got to stop that. I'm so stupid. I've got to just knock it off. That's really wounding to yourself, as opposed to going in and looking at why are there parts of me that are continuing to do this, that are doing it for a good reason. And if I can love them and help them release that and see what they're afraid of, and show a new possibility and give them a new job to move them. That's only one of many tools I use. But then it gets to the point that you don't really want the habit anymore. Like I have this client, she's brilliant, she's so smart, and she's wonderful and hilarious. And, really all her labs came back. I mean, she's struggling with weight, but it's not just that. Everything in her blood work, her stool sample, her hormones, everything was screaming like this woman eats way too much sugar. And it's not one of many things that needs to change, but there was such a deep, like that just felt like so impossible, or something, like not even like something she wanted to do. She's like, I love
Yeah.
sugar. I love it. Like, why would I? And so we went through a deep process that was coming from love and curiosity. And we did things that work with your brain, with the intelligence of your brain and your neurology and your emotions, instead of pushing against. And within 2 days, I get a message from her. I'm not eating sugar and I don't even want it.
2 days.
That's what happened after, like, she's in her late 50s, and her whole life she's been eating a lot of it since she was a child, right? And so this is because we worked with and not against her inner genius. We didn't push against her, we worked with her, and it became her own. She saw her own path forward that she's choosing for herself. No one's making her do it. She's not on a diet. And so that's just one example where there's like the mental and emotional part has to be met with love and curiosity, and what works with brain science and what works with how emotions work and what works with somatics, how the body works, not pushing against, which so many things are just pushing against and shaming, which when we feel shame, it literally triggers an inflammation cascade in our body. And a lot of people, I think, don't even want to talk about their health because they feel like they're just going to be judged. And it feels like just one more heavy ass thing that they have to carry through life on top of all the other crap that they can't stay on top of because it's all too intense. And like, and I've had people say, this is the only source of pleasure in my life is my ex, my cocktail at the end of the day. And I'm not going to get into what you should or shouldn't do. You're all adults. Like you're grown ass adults. You can do what you want, but like choose consciously, like know what you're choosing. And, I have people come in and just say, this is my only pleasure in life, which is usually not true. But that's why I give people a pleasure makeover, because I call it healthy hedonism. And it's like filling your life with pleasures that work with and not against your biology and your psychology, right? And when you do that, your life is so much more pleasurable. And then when your cells feel that you're feeling pleasure, but it's not pleasures that are damaging, like it feels good for a few minutes, and then there's an inflammatory cascade, or you damage your liver, your brain, then you gain your body's trust. You create signals of safety in the body feels held, loved, like from a cell to soul, you feel held and loved and nurtured. And then you, of your own accord, it feels so freaking good. It's like there's this intrinsic pleasure when you love on yourself and take care of yourself. It creates these chemicals in your body that are just so good. It's like sexy. It's like yummy. It feels good. And you're like, oh, I feel amazing. You feel empowered. You feel capable. And your world opens up a little bigger. What else can I do? And then what your world opens up a little bigger. Then what else can I do? And that's healthy. The path of healthy hedonism is just you bring in more and more pleasures that work with, not against you. That just starts to displace the crappy ones, like an ex that you're like, what the heck was I doing dating that person? Was scared to break up with him, but now that they're in my rearview mirror, I can't,
Yeah.
why was I even dating them in the first place? Ew, I would never go back. That's how I feel about old habits that didn't serve me, even though I have compassion for why I did them, right?
Yeah.
And so like we have to work on that level, right? The self-care, the healthy hedonism living is what I call it. And then your inner world. We need to work on your inner world. So we're coming from love, we're coming from nurture, we're sending signals of safety top down. The top down you mentioned is how your consciousness, your mind, your emotions shapes your biology. You cannot heal a chronic illness with patterns of non-safety in your thoughts and emotions. right? And then the bottom up, you also can't heal your mental health if your thyroid's whacked out or your hormones are out of, or your gut's messed up or whatever. You're full of all kinds of toxic exposures from your environment that your body's not able to get rid of for genetic or environmental or reasons of habit, right? And you're right that they feed on each other, right? Because if I'm dysregulated in my nervous system, then I'm not going to make great choices about what I eat, and I'm not going to prioritize moving my body or spending time in nature because, oh my God, I have to get stuff done or I might die or be unlovable or whatever, fail or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's just like if we're not doing all the pieces, if we're not we're not really optimizing our inner world consciously and intentionally, and we're not choosing our daily thoughts, actions, environment, physical and emotional and social environment consciously, that's going to create our biology, because our habits create our biology and our psychology, right? And then people will check their bank account and look at their investments, look at their KPIs in their business, but they're not doing the lab test to find out what's happening in their biology. Now, it's easier to log into your bank and log into your investments and check or whatever. I get that, having to have some blood or poop or saliva or urine come out of your body. But God, is it
Not that hard.
to know what's happening in your body? It's not that big of a deal. And does it cost money to get the good tests? Yeah, it actually does. I'm so sorry that I'm going to tell you guys, insurance, first, one of the things I learned, I was a medical anthropologist before I got into functional health. And what that means is I learned the politics, the economics, the culture of how science works, of how, so you can have a scientific study funded by big pharma that is going to be
Yeah.
skewed to make the outcome make them look good. You can have a scientific study that is probably didn't get a lot of funding by some like really smart, brilliant scientist who just wants to know the truth. That's real science. And then there's just kind of bought and paid for like humdrum science where they have a job to do research on something and they're not really looking for the truth because it's inconvenient and well, they'll get home late for dinner with their family. And so it's just kind of mediocre science. So when people they talk about science like it's all one thing, that's not real. There's so many different kinds of science. And so when you look at what's really true, like the true kind of science of the reality of our bodies and the politics of our medical system, there are incredible interventions and medications and technologies that save lives. Brilliant, wonderful people working in these systems, but they are incentivized for profit. They are incentivized to keep people chronically ill on medications and receiving
Yep.
treatments. And so there's a revolving door between, the fast food restaurants or just even the nicer restaurants that use the crappy ingredients. They seem nice, the food looks good on the plate, but the invisibles, you don't know what pesticides and fertilizers and all the stuff that's in it. I'm not saying never eat out, but eat some real food at home too, where you control the ingredients. There's a revolving door between the big food industry and the pharmaceutical industry and the chemical industry, and they're all creating patients, treating patients, creating patients, treating patients. And when I
All
can
right.
see that so clearly as an anthropologist, and then I'm seeing what's happening in all these kind of more pristine populations that are now being contaminated in all the ways, and what it's doing to them on every level, it's doing the same thing it's doing to us. But the cool thing is we can opt out of this. So when
Mhm.
I'm going to circle back to lab testing, when you do functional stool tests, like my favorite one is this company called Vibrant. It's called a gut zoomer. It's a silly name, but it's the most comprehensive stool test. There's another one that looks at your whole microbiome too. It's fascinating. Depends on how much money you want to spend. But like if you invest some money up front in looking at what's happening in your gut, which is a reflection, those microbes tell you what's also happening in your internal organs in your brain. It's really fascinating. You can do a home test to test your brain health. That's like a drop of blood. You use the same kind of finger prick thing you would use to test your blood sugar. You can test your hormones. You can pee in a cup and test your hormones. You can do all this from the convenience of your home. You can
Yeah.
find out what's happening in every major body system. And then someone like me can take that data and cross-reference everything, and you start to see patterns across all your body systems, and then cross-reference that with your habits, your lifestyle, your emotions, your symptoms. Then you can come up with a roadmap forward that works with the whole you. So now you have the bottom up, which is the lab information, maybe a little bit with supplements, mostly lifestyle. And then the top down is curating your inner world intentionally. And then you feel like a freaking badass. And then how do you think you feel when you show up for your business now? When your gut is happy and your hormones are balanced and your brain is working and you have plenty of energy and you have positive moods and you're tapped into your creativity and your
Huh.
intuition and you have balanced emotions and like, you know what I'm saying? Not to say you
That's
have a bad day or ever get a virus, but
no.
it's a whole new world. So I'm not.
That's why I wanted you on here. And there's so many parallels because let's go back to even the very beginning, what you just, even your dad telling you, or just the assumption that any mental illness is genetic. That is a conditioning. We were conditioned to believe that that was genetic. We've been conditioned into thinking that this is just the way it is to be in this constant stress response, constant inflammatory response. We don't even know
This is normalizing a toxic culture.
what it's
You are
like to
fleshing it out.
feel good, to
Right,
feel, because normal, you're right, we've normalized feeling like shit.
right.
And
Like, I'm okay. I'm fine.
yeah,
That's
I'm
what
fine. And that's as a high achieving woman, entrepreneur, that's our pat answer for everything. I'm fine. I'll keep pushing until I'm dead. And we're not realizing how much that is literally holding us back from the expansion that we're pushing towards.
beautifully said, Amanda.
It's all connected. And you talk about the conditioning and the revolving door. They keep, and I've said this before on this podcast, I've said it when I'm speaking, they've made the financial industry feel exclusive on purpose to keep us confused and to keep us out of it and to keep us in debt because they get the interest. Like we're a nation in debt for a reason, and they
Right.
keep us that way for a
It's
reason. It's
profitable.
the same revolving
Yeah,
door.
pathology is profitable.
It's the same revolving door. So when we, as educated, powerful, empowered people, take control of our health, of our finances, of our selves, and start making those choices from our own inner genius and intelligence, and just being aware and being able to shift our response to things and just see it from that different lens, even that shift in your thinking, instead of accepting what you've always seen and been conditioned to, look at who benefits
Always follow the dollar or follow the currency. Yeah,
every time.
right.
And so I love that. In the first time you talked, I'm like, this is a business and wealth building issue.
It
It
is.
is.
Look at that, like, so I think something we've talked about, Amanda, is how, you look at the productivity space, the peak performer space, the burnout conversations, all the conversations around these things, and biology is left completely out of the equation. For example, okay, there, number one, I do think mindset's important. I do it in my work.
Yes.
Productivity hacks, time management, all that stuff, great. I work with that too with my clients, make sure, you have buffers in your schedule and things like that. There are even people starting to talk about neuroscience and even a little touch on the nervous system, stress management, because we need more things to manage, time management, because we need even more things to manage. But, we start talking about, so we going back to the neuroscience. Now there are people who are talking about neuroscience and mental fitness, which I think is great. I totally support that. I'm not talking down to I'm not disparaging any of these experts. But if your physical brain is not working optimally, that clump of tissue in your and have all the neurons, how they make all that
Mhm.
thing in your skull, like that thing, which is connect in constant crosstalk with your gut, which is in constant crosstalk with everything. And there's constant chemical signaling happening all the time. And the brain is like on top of everything. All symptoms are generated by the brain, by the way. Everything, like
Yeah.
if this thing isn't healthy, because your gut isn't healthy, because other parts of you aren't healthy, because your liver is struggling, because whatever, because your blood sugar, because all these things, then how are you going to be a peak performer? How are you going to be productive? How are you going to make good decisions? How are you going to be connected to your wisdom brain or your sage brain? Like, how are you going to make good decisions for your business? I don't understand. Like, it's not possible. How are you going to have the energy? Because I'm going to tell you something. You can hate the messenger, but this is how biology works. Caffeine, stimulants do not create energy in your body. Every time we use caffeine, I'm not saying you can't, shouldn't, whatever, you're an adult, you can do what you want. Every time we use a stimulant, it is borrowing energy from your future self. You will get the bill. It's like living off a credit card without having a job. So if you're not doing things like sleep, nutrition, movement, creativity, joy, play, sexual expression and satisfaction, all these things to nurture and nourish yourself, and you think coffee is going to give you that stuff, so you have that extra push or edge. Have you ever noticed how you push one day and you're like, I got so much done, I was so productive. Why can't I just be this productive every day? And then the next day you're like, totally, you can't even like, you're like, I was so unproductive today. I'm such a failure. Or it can't work for you. And your body's working so hard. Every billionth of a second, there are chemical reactions happening, your body trying to protect you, trying to repair you, trying to prevent, trying to, like, your body's trying to get out ahead of all the crazy stuff that we think is normal that we're doing to ourselves. And our body's trying so hard. And it's very little to ask for them to just give them some care. Like, care, if we cared for our bodies the way they care for us, if we put the energy and thought into it that they, what nature's doing for us every constantly all the time, we would behave very differently. If we had genuine love for ourselves as if they were like our children, our pets, we would behave differently, not just our human cells, but our microbe cells, right?
You're right. And the thing that I want to impress upon people, because it's the excuse that a lot of us give ourselves, is like, yeah, that's great. And I don't have time to prepare my own food. I don't have time to meditate. I don't have time to do, these self-care activities because I'm running the business and these things depend on me. And I know what you're going to say, but go ahead and answer that rebuttal.
I mean, you'll probably say the same thing, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but tell me about your time bending then.
Okay, so time bending. Time bending. So healthy hedonism overcomes the objection, I have to give up pleasure to be healthy. So not true. Okay, time bending addresses the objection, I don't have time.
Mhm.
Here's the thing, time is not linear. For example, 1 minute of having a conversation with you, it's going to go by really fast. 1 minute of sitting at the wall holding a squat, it's going to go by very slow.
I did that just the other day. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. 1 minute of amazing sex is going to go by really fast. 1 minute of crappy sex is going to go by really slow. So 1 minute of sitting, and struggling, fighting your mind in meditation is going to go by really slow. 1 minute of being in complete bliss and feeling at one with the universe is going to go by fast, right? So our time is perceptual, and what we can do in a minute depends on our state and what
Yeah.
we're doing. If your body is not making energy, your brain is foggy, you're overwhelmed, you're stressed, your executive function is compromised, your ability to think clearly, your connection to your intuition is going to be cut off, or minimal, not like zero, but it will be diminished. Your access to creativity, problem solving, emotional regulation. You, like, literally, when people are stressed, they can't see solutions that are really obvious when you're regulated. Has anyone ever
Mhm.
experienced that? I bet we all have. I have. Sometimes I'm just like, I don't know, I can't figure out how to do that. And then there's some moment where I'm like on the toilet, in the shower, whatever. And then
Yeah.
something comes to me and I'm like, oh, that was like so obvious that I couldn't see it because I was dysregulated, right?
Mhm.
So when we slow, in the Marines, they talk about slowing down to speed up. When I lived in Spain, people would say, they said, I don't know if this was accurate, but they said that Napoleon used to say, dress me slowly, I'm in a hurry. And because when you're rushing, you become clumsy and,
Yeah.
so when we slow down and become intentional about becoming the artists of our life and of our business and of our biology and our psychology and our empires, then something magical happens. And this is the kind of magic that's real, is that when your brain is really on fire, like, you're not on fire, I shouldn't say that because that sounds like inflammation. When your brain is really working well and you're making really good, clean cellular energy, sustainable energy, and your organs are working well, your biology is optimized, your brain's optimized, your nervous system's regulated, you get so much more done in less time. And that's time bending and what I call the wormhole effect, or you can, like, the idea of the wormhole, that you can go from one part of the universe to far, far away in a very, like, there's like this wormhole thing. And, and I always hesitate around this one because I don't want to sound too woo, but this is so real and I can't not say this. But when I do my daily practices, by the way, I figured out how to weave 15 evidence-based mind, brain, body practices to transform your inner world. I call it the daily alchemy ritual. I've 15 things together in under 30 minutes.
Wow.
That's a lot of power to put 30 minutes into. I promise you waste 30 minutes somewhere that you could use for this.
Absolutely.
When you do this regularly, I start to experience, and I've seen this from clients, more synchronicity, more intuitive hits, more downloads, if you will, where suddenly it opens up this wormhole it takes you to the next level where I feel like we can quantum leap our businesses by just creating the biology, psychology, and energy and consciousness that is optimized. We invite in
Yeah.
faster progress and solutions that wouldn't have happened if we were just in the grind. So
We're removing the sludge. We're removing all the crap that's in the way of that channel.
exactly. Yes, absolutely. And so I just want people to know if you don't have time, if you're time compromised, then you don't have time, you can't afford not to take care of yourself. You don't have time to not make time because then you'll have more time. You get slowing down, you get more time back
Yeah.
because
And
you're regulating.
don't get me wrong, I fought that for a long time.
Oh, me too. I still have to remind myself. I
Yeah.
still catch the programming. I remember recently I was cooking food because I like to make food ahead and I've gotten it down like just to keep it simple. If you use really sexy herbs and spices, you can make really simple food taste like really gourmet. It's part of my healthy hedonism thing. But I was making healthy hedonism food for myself. I only spent a couple hours making like I think it was 8 or 9 meals because I have a whole system down I teach the people. But also some people they just hire chefs or whatever or help them source meal, whatever the thing is. But I refuse to believe there's anyone that can't eat real food for
Right.
whether it's money or time or whatever. There's always solutions. I've had people who have chronic fatigue and brain fog that is so severe and they're figuring it out. So, anywho, so I'm making this food for myself and it's delicious and beautiful. And I catch myself thinking, I have so much to do. I felt like I caught myself feeling like I'm getting behind because I'm stopping to cook for myself. And I had to stop and do a little love on myself and be like, oh, yeah, you forgot about time bending. You don't remember. What you're remembering is when you were about somewhere between 8, 9, 10 years old and you wanted to play Monopoly on a weekend with your family, and your dad came in like the Tasmanian devil and was like, this isn't a hotel. There's work to be done. We're going to clean off the garage, you know? It was not okay to rest. It was not okay to relax. It was like this Protestant work ethic, which is this
Yeah.
cultural belief that's 500 years old that came from Northern Europe, disseminated itself into the colonies, into the US, and now has spread like a virus all over the planet, except for maybe Southern Europe. That we live to work. We don't work to live. We live to work. And if you stop and enjoy and play, something bad's going to happen. And you know what the fundamental belief of the Protestant work ethic is?
Hmm.
Is that if you work hard and make money, that means God favors you. And if you are lazy or poor or whatever, then that means God does not love you.
Do not get me started on that. That's a whole other episode for another day, and you don't want to see me get on fire about that and the prosperity gospel and all that stuff.
Oh
Well,
God, yeah. Well, this whole productivity thing. So what's productive about having damaged organs? What's productive about being unhappy? What's productive about having an autoimmune condition, which is very common in founders and entrepreneurs, is
yeah.
autoimmunity, especially women. And it's like when you look at the statistics for entrepreneurs and leaders, CEOs around anxiety, depression, suicide, big issue. Autoimmunity, chronic digestive issues, cancer, it just goes on and on and on. Much higher risk. Why? Chronic nervous system dysregulation and taking these shortcuts. I'm gonna get more done by taking shortcuts with my sleep. I'm gonna cut into my sleep, my movement, my nutrition. And you think you're getting more, you're gonna be more productive. It's funny, I notice sometimes like if every once in a while I'll stay up late working on something because there's a deadline or I just like get in the momentum and I don't want to stop. We all do it. And I think I'm thinking clearly when I'm so half asleep. And then the next day I go back and look at what I did. And I was like, oh, that was like, I thought I did a really good job, but that was not a really good job.
That was a
So,
waste. Yeah.
yeah.
And that's the thing about it is I find that I have done it and still do it. Even if there's nothing, like I have to ask myself, does this need to be done right now? And even if it doesn't, I will find something to do if there's a hole in the calendar because I'm like, I can't, I should be doing something.
Yeah.
Something's got to get done because we are so used to that. Instead of like, what could I be doing for my body and my nervous system right now if I have 30 minutes to, or 15 or 10? Do something besides sit in front of the computer and check something else off the list. If it doesn't have to be done right now, we've created this urgency with notifications, with this, with that. I mean, my phone stays on do not disturb pretty
Also,
much
to-do lists that are
24/7.
completely unreasonable. I still catch myself doing it. Point is, but really, like if psychologically, if it's like, okay, I need to get these three things done today. Maybe I have some appointments too, but project wise, I need to get these three and make them like doable, not like I need to write a book today, But I need to get these three things done today. When you get those three things done, you're like, huh, I did it. I accomplished something. This is amazing. When you put, I need to get 12 things done today and you only get 8 things done, you feel like a loser.
I know. And my boyfriend makes like 20 task long lists for the day. And I'm like, we can't, that makes me nervous because I already know we're not going to get it done.
Right. We set ourselves up to feel like it's not enough, right? And a lot of what's causing, other than toxic chemicals and infections and microbiome issues and poor nutrition, and having toxic stuff in our in our food, but then not enough nutrition in our food. I call that the invisibles, the things we can't see on our plate, right? On top of that, there's the constant, like I have this friend Sage, he's brilliant, and he was talking about if you just distill down a lot of what the human mind ego, and I'm not an ego basher, egos are trying to protect us, they'll go away when we die, but to be the witness of them and have love and compassion for them and not let them run the show, it's like letting a toddler be the boss of everything, right? But our egos, if they're not receiving intentional love and reprogramming, it's constantly something's wrong, it's not enough, I'm not enough.
Yeah.
And just to watch throughout the day when how many times something we have some sense that something's wrong or not enough or that we're not enough. It's a lot. And this is all
Especially as an entrepreneur because it relies on you. And that's another layer that you're adding on. I've heard it said, and I've said it before, that becoming an entrepreneur is the deepest work you'll do on yourself ever.
it's the deepest transformational journey.
It is. And so you've got that layer of like, this is on me. People are relying on me, not just my clients, but anybody that I've hired and all this stuff, like the bills, everything. So you've got that layer that you've already put on yourself. And then you're adding the ego to it. You're adding the time pressure to it. You're adding all of this stuff on top
Nutritional
of it, which is
deficiency.
why this other stuff you're talking about is so much, it
Yeah.
has to be the foundation of it all.
Yeah. And it's totally doable. On one hand, I feel like I'm going to scare people if I have this Venn diagram. I love Venn diagrams. So I'm showing people, okay, there's like the hidden health issues. You do need the labs and the supplements will speed some stuff up. Really, they're very helpful, but they're not everything, right? And then, there is the lifestyle optimization. That sounds boring. The healthy hedonism living, I call it healthy hedonism makeover, lifestyle makeover. Everyone loves a good makeover. And then there's consciously curating your inner world. That sounds like so much to do. And that's why if you start with this process I teach people or some kind of intentional morning practice that clears out the bucket, so that you're clear and you're calibrated and you're setting the GPS for your day. I call it my morning exorcism sometimes too. You're setting the GPS for your day, and then you're going to make better choices about what you're just naturally going to make better choices because you're going to be more tuned into yourself. So you'll make better choices and you'll get ideas like, oh, this is how I can solve that. Oh, I'll do it this way. Like you'll start, and then you just one little thing at a time, one little habit at a time, one little change at a time. Things start changing, and then you're like, okay, now I'm ready to get moving more. Okay, and I'm going to find a place to go do yoga or do fit classes. I have a place there, yoga pod that I have unlimited, so I can do weightlifting, which I'm going to do after this, and I can do yoga and I can do yin, I can do the sweaty, heavy kind, the hard kind, whatever. And then I go on hikes and then I go dance. I dance like at least once a week, some kind of dancing, because I feel like dancing is medicine for our soul and we should all do it. So anyway, but it's just like carving out little at a time instead of trying to do it all at once. And then when I do a program with people, I'm the one having to do all the mental lifting of like interpreting all the labs and giving you a program. And the idea is to set it up where it's a drip sequence to people where it's just you do this, then you do this, and it's just a little bit at a time. And you start just kind of creating a little bit of space, kind of like atomic habits or kind of tiny habits, where you just make a little space. That's why I do the mindset nervous system first, because once you think in a new way and you see with new eyes, you get your head above water, you can breathe, you can see, you can like, now you have spaciousness. Now that's when, the habit change can start to come in and happen, and you do it because you're excited about it and you want to do it, not because I tell you to. You're not going
Yeah.
to stick with something because someone else told you to, because then you're operating from fear and need for approval instead of operating from self-love and inner drive and intrinsic pleasure. And so, and then once you get that, and then you start just kind of adding in more and more self-care. Meanwhile, you might be taking some supplements, but they're like in a little box. You just do that twice a day. It's only seconds every day. Maybe there's some micro practices throughout the day that help you get through the day better. And then what ends up happening, I call it weaving your hammock. So you're basically like weaving the support that carries you throughout the day. So from your morning ritual to your evening wind down, and then all the things in the middle, you're just being held and supported. You're weaving something throughout. These threads hold you through your life. And now you are so supported that you are more capable as an entrepreneur. And so it does need to come in at a digestible pace. We do need to be patient. Everyone's some quick fix pill, whatever. If you think peptides and stem cells are going to fix everything for you and you're not going to have to do any work on yourself or change your habits, I love peptides. I love stem cells. They're good for tissue. They're good for repair, but we have to stop tearing ourselves down and creating the holes that need the repair. Now, aging is gonna, just being on a planet, with solar radio, like just being a human alive on the planet, there's gonna be some stuff we need to repair. But I just really want people to understand that, yes, it's like this. We people want I understand why people want a quick fix, a magic bullet. They want something easy and fast. There's always a payoff. You're always going to get a bill for that. There's always going to be, you're going to have to pay the piper at some point, because you're
Yep.
trying to cheat nature, and nature always wins because you are nature and you're cheating yourself. But when we come in with the intelligence of nature, we tap into your inner genius, we work with and not against ourselves, then we're able to heal at the speed of life and transform at the speed of life, not at the speed of Amazon Prime, but at the speed of life. And it is amazing, given the decades we've spent damaging ourselves, the transformation that can happen in weeks to months to 9 months to a year. What I see in people daily is jaw dropping, like people going into remission from autoimmune conditions. I had a woman who is a hospital administrator, high stress job. She was going to have a heart transplant. She doesn't need a heart transplant anymore. She healed her heart completely. She, let's see, I had an internist, like a doctor who had lost a bunch of her small intestine to cancer and was living in adult diapers, having diarrhea all the time, and couldn't eat. She missed arugula. and,
Oh, yeah.
and
I would
she,
too.
yeah, I would too. Anyway, and so within weeks of working with me, like she was able to like have solid bowel movements and not wear diapers anymore. Like I'm just telling you, these, to me, things that we are supposedly impossible are normal to me. But it's not because, oh my God, I'm so great. It's because nature's genius and we are nature. That's why these people are healing, because they're doing top down and bottom up. And the thing is, so many people wait till it is so dire, till they are so sick. And I did this. I lived in a house that was contaminated. It had peeling paint that had lead, which I just kind of didn't think was that big of a deal, which is ironic given my profession. And then, there was toxic mold. Also ended up, because my immune system was so messed up from the lead and the mold, I ended up with activated Lyme, that I had no memory of a tick bite or anything, but it came up on the test, right? So I think most people have been exposed. It's just dormant until you're stressed or immunocompromised. I got so sick, my kidney function was shutting down. Every mucous membrane hurt, including my vagina, my bladder, my like everything. I had headaches, I had ringing in my ears, tinnitus, however you want to say it, aches and pains. I was in like fibromyalgia. I was in pain all over my body. My GI tract was a mess. My hormones were a mess. Like I was a mess. My vision was like going to shit, and I'd had perfect vision up until then. And the thing is, my intuition told me something in this house is making you sick beyond mold, and it was the peeling paint. And I was so busy focusing on my business and my clients. I was having them test their houses. I was having them run labs on themselves. I was having them like, and I had really good self-care in terms of, I was exercising. I was meditating 2 hours a day back then. That was crazy, but like it was beautiful too. But I was meditating. I'd done all this trauma work. I was taking good care of myself. So thank God for that, or I would have been much sicker.
Yeah.
way worse. But I'm in this poison environment and I'm not even slowing down to like listen to what my body's trying to tell me. My body was trying to warn me. And I just, wow. So I just want to say to everybody, like, I waited till I was in complete collapse. I could barely work for 2 years. It cost me multiple six figures. Like, waiting to care about this stuff till you are, people think they have more time than they do. We think we have more time than we have. We think we can kick the can down the road just a little bit longer. Now is never the right time because I have this launch, because I have this trip, because my in-laws are in town. I'm going on this vacation because I have people in town. I have another event. I have another. I'll do it later. I'll do it later. I'll do it later. I'll do it later. When a branch falls off a tree, it was not, it appears sudden, but that branch was rotting for a long time and then boom.
Yeah.
So one of the things I want people to do, if you're really sick, I work long distance. If you're like really sick, you have autoimmune, you have like weird mystery illness, Lyme mold, all that stuff. Yeah, I'm really good at helping people heal from that, even if they've been stuck for like 15 years. But I really love working with people who want to get out ahead of it now. They want to find out, how's my brain working now? How's my gut working now? How are my hormones now? Like, what's going on now? I have a woman recently, she was being proactive. And we found out she had high antibodies against her thyroid that basically she was about to develop Hashimoto's. And so we're finding out, and her thyroid was still normal. Like the function, it was still functioning, but these antibodies were going after her thyroid and we're catching it before it becomes a disease. So she doesn't have to go through the horror of living with with Hashimoto's and having no thyroid function and all the autoimmune stuff that comes with that. Usually it leads to celiac and all these other autoimmune conditions. So I just can't say enough. I implore you, for the love of yourself,
Yeah.
there are always solutions. If you think about improving your health and you feel like a deer in the headlights, like it's so overwhelming, it's because you're looking at the whole thing all at once. And if you can just see how it can be broken down in such tiny little micro actions that yield huge gains over time. And I think a lot of people don't want to wait months to a year to transform their health, their mental and physical health, and their performance, their longevity odds, all that.
They say that.
But it is no time. Like, given the decades we spent doing not nice things to ourselves, giving ourselves a year to heal and optimize, to recalibrate, integrate, and optimize is one of the best gifts you can ever give yourself. It's one of the best investments you can ever make. I've had people, like, when they've tallied up, I like working with people in finance because they keep records. Like, I've had clients tally up the amount of money they spent on even functional practitioners for over like 15 years, and it's like 5 to 6 figures, and they still do
I
because
I'll admit it myself. I've done it. Yeah.
yeah, because it's been haphazard and piecemeal. Because they go for here and they run a lab here and then they take a supplement here and then but if you, I'm really a systems person. I'm like, if we work on, we're multi-dimensional and thorough, we work on a systems level and we look at, yeah, like, it's like a combination lock. Like, if you have a combination lock and you get one number right, it won't open. If you get two numbers right, it won't open. If you get the right numbers in the right order, it won't open. But if you get the right numbers in the right order, it opens. And so when you get support doing that for yourself, the payoff the rest of your life is enormous because you're going to learn to see things that you can't unsee. You will understand things you can't unknow. I know Amanda knows all this. If I can tell, like, I can tell how much Amanda, like, she can see, like, her eyes are open, like she's living it. And we're still human, right? We still have things we need to work on and catch within ourselves. We're all living in this world. But I can't tell you how much more ease there is. You know, people think, oh, it's so hard to change your health. No, it's so hard to feel mediocre or like crap all the time. That's what's truly hard. And once you get the new habits in place, they're second nature. It's easier. Like, I feel life is so much easier now that I nurture and nourish myself. My life is so much easier when I move my body and make time for fitness. Like, if we can't make
Yeah.
2 hours a day, let's say an hour and a half a day, like 30 minutes for a morning practice, 45 minutes for a workout, and maybe 2 to 3 hours a week for cooking, shopping, whatever. If we can't give ourselves that much, and we'll give our business everything, and then we're in denial about the value of, like, our body as the apparatus through which we experience everything about our lives. Whoa, that's really bad math, right? And I'm not saying
Yeah.
it judgy, I'm saying it being the person who's done it. And I'm
Yeah.
saying
And
it,
I've
yeah. And I did it
the same.
as a health professional. I did this. As a health professional, I did this.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody else this morning. Doctors are their worst patients, and like we all do it. Even though we know better, we fall into the same traps that we came out of, that we talk about. And the reason we're talking about it is because we've been there. And
Yeah,
it doesn't mean we don't fall back into it. Doesn't mean that's why I love what I do and I love who I help. Is 'cause I've been there, I've done it. You've been there, you've done it. That's why we created what we do,
yeah,
is to come at it from a place of not up here on the mountaintop. It's I'm right here next to you. We've done this. We've seen how it works. We've seen that it helps. We've seen it change the trajectory of people's lives. And that's what we're here to do. So this was a great conversation. And I knew from the first time I heard you talk that we were going to have to talk on this podcast. And I'm going to
it's
put
the
all
tip of
your
the
links.
iceberg.
I'm going to put all your links in the show notes. And if I want to leave people, like we talked about, like, oh, I'm just stressed. That's just normal. If you could leave them with one thing that they could do to just maybe check themselves a little bit or regulate, what would that be?
Okay. Can I do two? I know when we need to wrap up, there's two things. One, if you want to be passive, if you go to my website, there's something, it's called I should probably name it something else, but right now it says Magic Brain Trick Meditation. It's actually neuroscience based, but it feels like magic. And it works for overwhelm, anxiety, pain, physical pain, like physical symptoms, actually a broad range of symptoms, and sleep. How many of you are dealing with overwhelm, sleep issues, some chronic aches and pains, things like that? It is wild how this works. I use it all the time to this day. I've known about this for years, and it was developed by Peter Levine and Maggie Phillips, both PhDs, pain and trauma specialists. And then I put my own zhuzh on it. And so, yeah, so you can go grab that. It's free. And then another thing, just starting with, as you notice, I'm not a slow, chill person. I'm a very spicy, zesty. I fit in really well in Latin America. And so just slowing things down. So there's something I got from someone who's now deceased. Her name was Beth O'Hara, but she talked about half speed movement. And I love that. So just half speed movement. So now I went from excited and I'm going to slow down my breath. If I breathe at half speed, I start to talk at half speed. I pick up my phone at half speed. I walk to the bathroom at half speed. It will teach your nervous system that it's okay. Like, so just slowing down your breath and your movement in any moment, if you anchor it to something you do, like stand up and walk to another room, that's why I say
Yeah.
the bathroom, because eventually you got to go or fill your water bottle or whatever, get food. Yeah, just slow down and go outside,
Yeah.
you know, and then maybe do this meditation. If you do it in the morning, it'll really help set the day. It's not the 30-minute thing I told you about, but it's still a great way to start your day. And it's a really great way to wind down. And once you listen a bunch of times, you'll memorize how to do it, and then you'll have it in your brain for life. You won't need the recording anymore. You can memorize the technique, and you'll have it for the rest of your life.
Love it. I love it. Well, I think it's so important as women, as human beings, as business owners, all of it, that we take all this information and we do something with it, because you're right. We are here for a limited time. And I look at it as I've got half my life left if I'm lucky, maybe less than that. And I want to enjoy it. I talk about building wealth. I talk about having money and building all this stuff. I want to enjoy that. And I want to be around to do that. My grandmother is 95, lives by herself, drives, goes and has lunch with her friends.
Yeah.
I want to be that person.
Yeah, go grandma.
Go grandma, go grandma Barbara. So that's the it. Like we should be able to have that fullest
Yeah.
expression of our life.
I think, women, we think, for example, having a miserable menopause is normal, but as an anthropologist, I speak on this sometimes, how cultures that actually breeze through menopause and don't medicalize it, they don't have they don't have a word for hot flash. In cultures that struggle, it's not, it's a combination of lifestyle, But also, this happens in cultures where women gain status and personal freedom as they age. So much of what we think nature's so cruel with all these symptoms and the things we're struggling, but your body's your best friend. And so, like, if you put your hand on a hot stove and it didn't hurt, your body would be being an asshole. It would be betraying you. If you have any ache, any pain, any fatigue, any weird digestive thing, any weird hormonal thing or sex thing or vagina thing or penis thing or whatever, any of that stuff, if you don't like how it feels, that means that's a request for nurture. And we just need to learn how to listen and give ourselves what we need. And it's more simple than we realize. Like sometimes simple things like water, nutrition, hugs, time outside, getting some sleep, chilling out your nervous system. You can do really high tech things too, but like really the low tech things are the most powerful.
Yeah. And I'm sure most of people right now need to go have some water.
Yeah.
That's probably number one. All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Traci. I will probably have you back again, and I hope that a lot of people reach out to you and learn more about this and figure out, like, you're checking your investments, you're checking your bank account. Let's check what's going on inside so we can maximize that and protect it moving forward. All
Thank
right,
you.
guys. Until next time, keep building.
If this lit something up, share it, review it, and get in the room. Join the Expand Your Empire community and start turning wisdom into wealth. You're not too late, and you're not doing this alone.